Have you ever wondered what invisible force dictates, well, pretty much everything you buy? The price of your coffee, whether the latest phone is in stock, even what you get paid for your job. It all comes back to a word we hear all the time: demand. But trust me, it's way more powerful and a lot more specific than you probably think. So let's pull back the curtain on this unseen force that's shaping our world every single day.
Look, every single day, we're all consumers. You walk through a market like this, you're scrolling online, you are constantly making choices. Should I buy this? Can I get a better price on that? Do I really need this right now? But what's actually happening behind the scenes? What is truly driving those decisions you make?
So let me ask you this. Is just wanting something the same as actually demanding it? I mean, I might want a private jet, but does the global economy care about my daydream? Is a simple wish enough to be called demand in the eyes of the market? The answer is a hard no, and it's a really important distinction.
All right, so let's get this straight. When an economist uses the word demand, they don't just mean a vague wish or a desire. They mean something very, very specific. It's not about feeling, it's about action.
Think of it this way. On one side, you have desire. That's just the urge. It's wanting a car you know you can't afford. But on the other side, you have real economic demand. And that's desire with two critical things backing it up: your willingness to pay for it, and, this is the big one, your ability to pay for it. The moment someone actually buys that car, their desire transforms into a real, measurable force in the market.
You can actually boil it down to a simple formula. For true demand to exist, you absolutely need all three of these ingredients. You've got to want it, that's desire. You have to be willing to actually part with your money, that's willingness. And you have to have the money in the first place, that's ability to pay. If any one of those is missing, you've just got a wish, not demand.
Okay, that makes sense for one person, right? But how do we go from your individual shopping list to the behavior of an entire market with millions of people? Let's zoom out and see how this scales up.
So this is what we call an individual demand schedule. It's really just a simple chart showing how much of something you'd buy at different prices. And you can see the pattern right away, can't you? When the price is high, at 10 rupees, you only buy 1 kilogram. But as that price drops all the way down to 2 rupees, suddenly you're buying 5 kilograms. It's a totally intuitive, inverse relationship. And here's the cool part. If you take those numbers from the table and plot them on a graph, you get this, the individual demand curve. See how it slopes downward from left to right? That's the visual proof of what we just saw. Price goes up, quantity demanded goes down. Price goes down, quantity demanded goes up. It's that simple.
Now for the whole market, it works the exact same way. We just add up what everyone, person A, B, C, and so on, is willing to buy. At 10 rupees, maybe the whole market only demands 30 kilograms. But drop that price to 2 rupees and suddenly the total demand skyrockets to 90 kilograms. It's the same logic, just on a much bigger scale.
And you guessed it, we can graph that market data too. This gives us the market demand curve, which shows the total demand from everyone in a place like this. And because it's just the sum of all the individual curves, it follows that exact same downward sloping rule. It's a super powerful way to visualize how an entire group of consumers will behave.
You know, all these tables and graphs, they're all illustrating one of the most fundamental rules in all of economics. It's a principle laid out by the famous economist Alfred Marshall, and it's simply called the law of demand. The law itself is straightforward, but it starts with this super important phrase, other things being equal. That basically means, assuming nothing else in the world changes, if the price of something goes up, people will buy less of it. And if the price goes down, people will buy more of it. That inverse relationship is the engine that drives almost every market on the planet.
But why? Why do we act this way? Well, it's actually pretty logical when you break it down. First, there's the income effect. When a price drops, your money suddenly has more purchasing power, so you can afford to buy more. Then you've got the substitution effect. If your favorite brand of coffee gets too expensive, you'll probably just switch to a cheaper one, right? And finally, a lower price brings in all new customers who simply couldn't afford it before.
So you'd think this law is unbreakable, like gravity. But this is where economics gets really fun, because we're talking about people. And people are, well, complicated. Sometimes, for some very strange reasons, we break the law. On the left, you see our normal, well-behaved demand curve sloping down. But on the right, look at that, it slopes up. This graph is showing a totally bizarre situation. Whereas the price of something goes up, people actually want to buy more of it. What in the world would make us do that?
Well, there are a few fascinating exceptions. There are rare cases called Giffin's paradox, but the ones you'll see more often are prestige goods.
Think designer handbags or luxury watches. Part of their appeal is the high price tag. It's a status symbol. And then there's pure speculation. If you think the price of a stock or a concert ticket is going to be even higher tomorrow, you'll scramble to buy it today, no matter how high the price is.
All right, for this last part, we've got to cover one of the most critical and honestly, one of the most confusing ideas in basic economics. We need to understand the difference between a change in quantity demanded versus a change in demand itself. I know they sound identical, but they are worlds apart. Okay, let's look at this visually. There are two ways your buying habits can change. On the left, let's say a product goes on sale. The price changes, and you simply move from one point to another along your existing demand curve. But on the right, something bigger has happened. The entire curve has shifted. This means that at every single price, you're now willing to buy more than you were before. Your fundamental desire has changed.
So here's the absolute key takeaway. If only the price changes, it causes what we call a variation in demand. You're just moving along the line. But if some other factor changes, it causes a change in demand. The whole line moves. So, what are these other factors?
Well, there's a whole bunch of them. If you get a raise, your change in income can shift your demand curves. If the price of a substitute, like jaggery, changes, your demand for sugar might shift. Same with complementary goods, like cars and fuel. If fuel gets expensive, demand for big cars might shift left. And of course, things like new trends, a great ad campaign, or even just what you expect prices to do next month can shift the entire curve.
So now you've got the tools. The next time you see a big sale, a new fashion trend, or a really persuasive ad, ask yourself, is this just pushing me to a different spot on my current demand curve because the price changed? Or has it actually shifted my entire curve, fundamentally changing how much I want this thing? Understanding that difference is the key to seeing the hidden economic